A troubled young man kidnaps a powerful executive, convinced that he's really an alien, with the intention of forcing a confession. This one bounces between thrilling and funny, and with the remake on the way, it's the perfect time to go back and check out Save the Green Planet. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and talk about sci-fi movie. It's that simple, and today we are looking at a Korean film called Save the Green Planet from 2003. And one, because I remembered it being good from when I saw it like 20 or so years ago, but also because there is a remake of sorts coming out soon from oh god, pronouncing his name, I don't know if I can do it, but from the director of Poor Things. I'll just say that. There you go. That'll do.
There you go.
Called Begonia. So it's a different name, but it is based on this movie starring Emma Stone, and that is coming out soon. So that seemed like a really good reason, a good excuse to go back and look at Save the Green Planet. Which, you know, I did see way back. It came out in 2003. I probably saw it in like 2004, maybe 2005, in that range.
Wow, all right. Fair enough.
Been a long ass time. I suspect you have not seen this before.
Actually, I'm very well versed in Korean cinema. I don't want to brag, I have seen Squid Game and Squid Game 2. So that's, the extent of it.
I mean, you're getting snarky, but I feel like if I just went, well, of course, David's not seen it, the pleb, you would have been equally upset.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always going to play to be the opposite of whatever it is you're saying. Like, there's no way you're getting out of that. But yeah, no. I don't want to spoil too much of my thoughts on it, but I knew so little about this that even just looking at the poster of this, I feel like I wasn't prepared for what I ended up getting.
Well, I think the thing that I came out of when I watched my first few, because this was probably in like the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 Korean movies I'd seen at the time. Like there's maybe a few I'd seen before this. Is I think the general feeling I had coming out of them is that they kind of get away with like capturing a different mix of tones, and it can even bounce between tones in a way that American movies just can't really do. Like there's something that they could just, they're able to juggle weird tones together in a way that I just don't. And if anything, like the director doing the remake is maybe one of the few directors making movies that I'm like, you know what, I can see him kind of doing it actually, based on what else I've seen from him. But most directors can't do that. But yeah, we'll get into it. Of course, we will start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And of course, if you are enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button. Helps out a bunch if you do. Give us 5 stars on your podcast app of choice. And of course, you can support us financially over at Patreon or via YouTube membership and get bonuses. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So the basic premise of Save the Green Planet is that the main character, I'll call him Lee because it's easier to pronounce than his first name. But Lee believes that there are aliens among us, and that one in particular high-ranking alien is posing as a pharmaceutical executive, and he kidnaps him to interrogate him because he believes that the aliens are going to make their move soon. And it kind of turns into like because someone's kidnapped, police are looking for him, he's trying to get information, and there's a bit of like a kidnapper-kidnappee kind of relationship forming throughout. And there might be aliens.
And also just that overarching vibe of like, as the police are closing in, like the how does he get out of this situation sort of thing.
Yes, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on. So that is the basic gist of it. Obviously, we'll leave it there for spoilers' sake until we go past that wall. But I am very curious to get the answer to this question. David, what did you think of Save the Green Planet?
I liked it. I liked the movie. If I'm putting it in the most basic terms, I liked the movie.
Can I just say, it felt like there was a lot of like gears and weight behind your eyes before you just said that very simple sentence.
Yeah, because I wanted if everything that follows is going to be a never-ending trail of asterisks of like how different this movie is to what I was expecting. Because just like behind the scenes, we set up the schedule pretty far in advance. There is the ability to change it. We do slot stuff in like the last minute sometimes, but this one's been hanging around ever since Begonia was basically announced. We've had an idea that we were going to get to this. And all I remember seeing is the poster, which is very lighthearted. It is a very like happy-go-lucky, like swinging from a UFO, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, this is just one of those like lighthearted sort of. So it reminded me, obviously that was a Japanese movie, but it reminded me a bit of Before We Vanish, where it's very quirky and very like up tempo and stuff like that. And I was expecting something down that level.
I would say this is still quirky. I don't think that's an incorrect statement.
It's quirky. It's absolutely quirky, but I just didn't expect it. What you were saying before about the idea of they can meld together these genres in a very specific way, I agree. I think it is something that you would not ever see in a current American like Hollywood film. That being said, I don't think anything could have prepared me for how borderline horror movie this ends up being at points. Like, this is like, there's a lot of sequences in here that are like almost bordering on a Saw sequence at times, and I'm just like, what the hell am I watching here? I know, yeah, I see your face. I see what you're doing there. I get that you don't agree, but like the tone of it, the idea of it, of like what they're doing here, and all I can think about is he was smiling and swinging from a UFO in the poster. That's what I signed up for here. So if I'm just talking about the movie though, like, I think all of the acting is very well done. I think the story, once it gets itself mapped out, also very well done. I can see why they're doing a remake of it, because it does kind of have an evergreen sort of story. It does feel like something that is not locked to any one time. It's something that's going to be able to last quite some time, and across cultures as well, obviously. I think that special effects wise, there's not a whole lot of it, but what they do have does work very well for keeping this sort of cornier quality to it. It's still good. It's not like they're laughably bad like Birdemic effects, but it's still a little bit on the cheaper side, and that feels intentional.
It's 2003 and it's not Hollywood. So like when CG comes into play, it has a bit of a look to it, but it's very colorful and it kind of fits the tone that the movie's been kind of bouncing.
Right. And I will say that by the time we hit the end of the movie, I was honest to God engaged with the well-being of these characters, no matter like how quirky or off the wall they end up being. I even the people who theoretically are the antagonists, because this is a movie that definitely plays with your idea of who's the antagonist. I still think that they delivered great performances, and I was really engaged with where we were going to end up by the end. I don't want to say too much about the end specifically, but overall it's very well done. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, it's very unique. I mean, I think I remembered that, if nothing else. There's like, I remembered a lot of the movie. I remembered kind of how it ended for the most part, and I remembered the premise, and I remembered like a lot of visuals from the movie. I will say there's one segment that I had forgotten entirely that like made me sit up and go, oh, I did not remember how crazy this bit got. So I'm excited to talk about that in spoilers when we get to it. But there's, I think it plays a really interesting game with the audience in that we're following a main character who arguably should not be considered a hero under any normal circumstances, but it kind of gets you to somewhat sympathize and side with them in weird ways, and almost make you want to hope that this isn't a delusion. It makes you want to hope that this is true and that he's doing something good, but he might just be a psychopath, and that's something you have to kind of contend with as you're going through the movie. And because of the tone that keeps kind of shifting, you're like, they could really go either way with like this could end in any like number of 100 ways, and any of them would feel fitting based on what we'd done up until that point. So it feels very unique in that sense. It feels like it's got this energy to it throughout. It does feel like this manic movie that's doing all these crazy little things constantly. It's not afraid to do something a little stylish that might feel a bit cheesy in any other movie, but here it just feels like it fits in with its weird tone, because again, it's able to do something that's nail-biting tension, quickly cut to something where a character's been really weird and quirky, but then also do something very kind of gory, but then completely skip to something else. It's very emotional and touching, where you're kind of like, I almost want to start tearing up at this moment. And it's very, very unique in the way it bounces around all these things. And even though I think that quality is something I do think about specifically with South Korean, obviously, cinema, you
don't think Kim Jong-un would be right up this alley? You don't think that's what he's going to do?
I feel like he's going to have one tone and stick to it if he's doing
Probably.
any movies. But while I do associate that with Korean cinema in general, I think this movie might be the most extreme end of like just how much it can jump around in tone and genre. And it was fun revisiting it. It was fun going back and kind of reminiscing and reminding myself of all the paths it takes, because like I say, I remembered a lot of for a movie that it's been 20 years, maybe a little bit more than that since I've seen it. I'd remembered a good fair amount of it, but there was a lot of details, a lot of little things and moments and stuff about the character's backstory that had faded over time. So I'm excited to get into all that once we dive a bit deeper. But yeah, also, if you're a fan of the Wizard of Oz song Over the Rainbow, you'll get about 3 or 4 different versions of it during the course of this movie.
Yeah, I can see the relevance, like, to some extent, but not with how heavy they were leaning on it. Like, it's incredible how many different variations of that song they had in this movie. I
mean, maybe it's kind of a loose fit, but like, hey, the director's friends get a band that did a really nice punk cover, so he's going to... I'm just sort of guessing. I'm just kind of joking that. I mean, the band sounds like they're probably American, but...
I would argue that. I get what you're saying, but there's certain like ways they put emphasis on certain words that
really?
I'm thinking it might actually just be a transliteration sort of thing.
Okay, fair enough. But it's definitely like a very American style voice in the vocals, yeah. But
no, that was straight up second wave pop punk, no doubt.
So yeah, I mean, music kind of like it goes periods where there's not really much of an emphasis on it, but then there's like emotional times where it really comes in, and we get the strings coming in as slow motion stuff's happening on screen. It kind of unravels in a big way, and yeah, you're sort of forced to kind of basically deal with the fact that your main character's kind of doing things that on the surface feel like they're kind of bad, and like, do you really want to root for
on
them?
The surface and immediately under the surface and quite a bit down beneath that as well. But then you start getting some, okay, maybe he has a deeper point to it.
Maybe. Emphasis on the maybe.
Maybe.
Tough to say. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how much to talk about before we get to spoilers, so I think this section might be a little bit on the short side.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to judge the actors in these things, because you can tell that the actors are putting on a character. You can tell that they're like really getting into whatever it is going on, but it's always hard when you have that language barrier to tell whether or not they are like actual theatrical, like putting in a good performance, or like soap opera acting. It's hard to tell where that line is sometimes. And I think they all put in a really good performance, but for all I know, this is exactly what a Korean soap opera looks like.
I mean, that's why I don't even worry about thinking about that, because it doesn't matter to me, like that distinction. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, there's still, like, it's still possible to watch a foreign movie and go, this acting's terrible. Obviously, like, there's definitely like a fine line where people who actually speak Korean or are from Korea might say, they're doing some things that actually feel a bit over the top to me because I'm a native speaker of that language, but that isn't as relevant to us, so I'm not really going to worry about it. I mean, I'll let people who speak Korean make those like critiques, right? I'll judge it on based on what I can actually see, and for me, it's more about like, okay, are they visually engaging? Are they like getting, like, am I seeing a lot of the character in them, even though I can't speak the language and I'm reading subtitles? Like, am I seeing the reactions? Am I seeing those things? And in a weird way, yeah, it probably gives them a bit more wiggle room to like be a little bit more over the top and not have me read it as like incorrect, because I'm not, the nuance of the delivery isn't going to hit me in quite the same way. But that said, though, some moments will still work and still hit you with, like if someone's getting emotional and their voice starts breaking up, I'm going to recognize that regardless of the language, something that. So
Oh yeah, we'll always be able to recognize like the tearing up moments. We'll be able to recognize moments of like extreme anger, stuff like that. Yeah, no, I'm more so talking about the beat to beat, like in between scene stuff. For all I know, one of them is speaking with what is the Korean equivalent of like a deep South accent, or like, you know, something where it's just like really pops out for the character, and that's just not something we're going to pick up on.
Yeah, yeah. So I just don't worry about it. I mean, it's not going to affect anything for us. So,
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of energy. It's got a lot of life in it. It feels like it's, you know, it's 2 hours long, but it feels pretty well paced. I think it goes in relatively quick. You know, I don't feel like it slows down or anything like that. I feel like every time you think you've gotten used to what the movie is, it kind of shakes things up by introducing the next element that'll kind of open it a little bit, and that keeps you on your toes. So,
yeah, that's fair. I think there is a little bit of a gap somewhere in the first act before it gets into the second that maybe drags just a little bit for me. Maybe it takes just a bit too long of, you know, staying in this one place, not cutting to other stuff. But as soon as it starts really getting the ball rolling, once we have all the characters introduced and how they interact here, I think it's, honest to God, like you said before that the ending could go any number of ways, that there's no way to really predict it. If you're able to watch this movie without like a clock or without looking at the search bar or anything like that, try to do that, because I guarantee you will expect the ending to come at least like 4 times before it actually does. And that's not a bad part of the movie, but like it just keeps on swerving every single time that you think like, oh, this is the big finale. This is the nope. We're going to keep going, and it's going to get bigger, and we're just going to keep on doing that.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to critique any kind of elements before we get into spoilers, I would say that maybe we spend maybe a little bit too much time on the introduction of the 2 detective characters. It feels like they give them a bit more character early on than I feel like they maybe actually needed for the rest of the movie. So, you know, because they do a whole thing where like the young detective's going to the old detective and like saying, hey, I'm a big fan of your work and all that. And I don't know if I really need them to have that much of a relationship beyond just, you're my partner and I'll call you if I find something. Like, that would have probably sufficed, I think.
For what ended up in the movie, yeah, I can see that. I do like how they did give them a little bit deeper, just because it does ingratiate me with the characters more. So as the movie progresses, because, you know, they aren't directly linked to each other. It's not like this is a buddy cop film on top of everything else. They do kind of go down their own paths throughout the movie. So I like the fact that they do have independent identities more so than here's how they relate to each other.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's a minor quibble though. Like, I'm not even saying it as a major critique. It's just the only time in the movie where I felt like, oh, this is taking time to introduce these like their main characters, and they're not quite main characters. So, you know, that's what it is.
I think I'm good with the characters themselves. I would agree though that I don't feel like the relationship between them and the rest of the police squad, that's the part that seemingly goes nowhere to me, because they keep on that cuts back every once in a while where they're saying like, oh yeah, clear out this guy's desk because he's not on the force anymore because he's been a disgrace. It's like, you got a guy believing in aliens over there who's got a hostage. I don't care about this dude's desk job. Like, you can cut that bit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like one minor payoff, I guess, but like, you know, other than that, there's not much to it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think we just have to say spoilers and get into the meat of the movie, because honestly, dancing around where it's going is kind of tough here. So spoilers for Save the Green Planet. You have been warned, but clearly we recommend it.
And I guess also spoilers theoretically for Begonia whenever that comes out, because I guess they're going to have the same plots.
Well, in theory, we don't know how much it's like doing a 1-to-1. I will say though, the one photo I've seen of it is Emma Stone with her head shaved, which makes me think that the whole cutting the hair part of the plot is still there, and she's the kidnapped person. That would be my assumption. But other than that, I mean, I don't know how much it's going to match up.
Oh yeah, no, it could be. That's the sort of thing where, because of how weird this movie is, I feel like it could match up 85% of the way, beat for beat, and then all of a sudden in those last 15% just go a completely separate path that still makes absolute sense to what we've been presented.
Yeah, they could do whatever. So, yeah, we'll get into it. So, the movie opens with our main character Lee explaining to what turns out to be his girlfriend Suni, who works at a circus. She's like a tightrope walker and like performance artist. He's explained to her, and this is all done through like he's got like a slideshow of like photographs, and he's basically just giving you the exposition dump. But it works in this context. Well, one, because it's the start of the movie, you need some exposition, but two, because the whole point of him is that he might be crazy, and he sounds like a crazy man as he's telling you all this stuff about, like, I've got this photo of this executive, and he's definitely part of the royal bloodline of these aliens that have come from Andromeda, right? And like he's going to make contact with the crown prince of the aliens, because when the next like lunar eclipse happens, they're going to come to Earth, and it's all over. It's game over, man. I need to take care of this. We need to do something. It's all on us.
Yep. And like this whole time, he's taking all these like creep shots of this CEO guy, this person who what's the name
Kang,
of it? Jang?
Mr. Kang.
Kang. Kang is taking all these creep shots, and one of them is him like golfing naked. In fact, multiple of them are golfing naked. So immediately you are presented with this weird dichotomy of he's talking about something crazy. He is showing this guy golfing naked. And so everything about what is written on page screams comedy. But the way it's presented, like there's all these like scratchy letters popping up on screen, and you're just given like this David Fincher 7 vibe this whole time. So it's a weird split there.
Yeah, the whole naked golf, it looks like they're at like a sort of wash house / like sauna place, but there's like a balcony where he's just deciding to golf because he's a wacky rich man who can do that. I'm going to golf naked.
Fair enough.
I guess that's
can't say I ever would, but good for him.
Hey, lots of money makes you do crazy things, all right? You do things for kicks. But it's
I will never, as far as I live, I will never play golf. How dare you?
I mean, I'm sure every rich person does their own kinky, weird things. It's not one size fits all.
Yeah, no, I'm doing all that, just not the golf. That's crazy.
So, but like it emphasizes that he's well off, right? He's the head of this company, or he's a high up executive in this company, and he's got a wife, he's got kids, all the rest of it. And so you're thinking, if you're looking for like double meanings here of like, okay, he's saying they're aliens, but like, is this about class? Are we doing subtext about class? Because we're looking at a rich man with this slave, and he's like commenting on how the wife's this spoiled bitch character, and the kids are spoiled brats, blah blah blah. Like it's really painting like a picture of like, regardless of the I think he's an alien part, there's definitely a lot of commentary on who these people are in the world as well. So that's get your mind going a little bit about themes and about what we're talking about here. So yeah. Somehow, this convinces Suni to be a part of the plan, because he finally turns the projector off, and we finally see our main character, and he turns to her and she's crying, and he says, "Suni, what's wrong? Are you scared of me or something? Something like that?" And she's like, "I'm just scared." In the sense that she's scared that everything she just heard is absolutely true. Like, what do we do now? If there's aliens here, what do we do? And, she ends up helping him with the kidnapping to go get Mr. Kang. Which, just to make him unlikable, he drunkenly gets out of a taxi, and the taxi driver's like, "Hey, you've not paid your fare, sir." And he's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Okay, it's 40. I think my subtitle said $40, but like, I'm sure it would have been
whatever that translates to over across."
And he hands him some money, and he's like, "Sir, this is only 20. He's like, "Get away! Like, imagine charging me 40 for a 10-minute ride." And he's like, "Well, first of all, it was a 30-minute ride, and secondly, it's a set price. I don't pick the price." He just walks off, and it's like, "All right, fine, douchebag," and just spits at him and walks away. But it's like, okay, he is an unlikable prick, right? And he even mouths to himself, "Oh, imagine getting all upset about $20," which again is putting him in this elitist, money is like no object to him kind of attitude.
Yeah. I will say, during this entire sequence, the reason he's being driven, theoretically, he's always driven, but specifically here, is that he is drunk. He is absolutely just wasted. However, I can't help but feel like he's doing his best Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black, Like he's like slurring all of his words and like moving around very jankily. So I feel like it is kind of trying to make the audience think like, yeah, this guy is an alien. See how weird he is? See how inhuman he is with the way he's acting here?
I have to admit, I just thought he was acting drunk. I don't think I got alien vibes from him in this scene.
Yeah.
In this scene.
Obviously that's what it actually is.
Yeah. Later on, there's definitely some scenes where they're playing like, oh, is he doing alien stuff? So yeah, and one of my favorite things about this movie actually is that the main character's not good at anything he does. Like this kidnapping attempt is sloppy. The guy's getting away. It's actually Sumi who like comes out at the last second and actually knocks him out. Like it's her that actually saves the day here and puts him down so they can actually take him back. And then the rest of the opening titles play as they're driving. They're so hyper as well. You've got this like punk cover of Over the Rainbow playing as the cameras are doing like complete spins of a tunnel and like close-ups of his face as he's driving. It's very manic. Oh, yeah. It feels like there's going to be some references to other Kubrick movies later, but this felt like some weird playful like take on like the characters from A Clockwork Orange, like in them driving like manically. This felt like a weird like absurd take on that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I assume all of the credits, because that's what we're seeing here, are coming up and they all look like they're cut out of magazines, like all the letters in Ransom style. So again, the tones here, the idea that it is like, we just kidnapped a guy. Yes, it was a more, I won't say silly, but a more quirky kidnapping scene. And then as we're taking him back to this torture chamber, more or less, we're just going to be playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow the whole time. It plays with your emotions in multiple different ways of like, am I supposed to be laughing? Is this funny?
Is it?
I thought it was. As soon as it started playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I was like, all right, that's silly. I like it.
Yeah. So he's got like a basement workshop area underneath his house, which is up on like a mountain, and like that's where they take him. They strap him to like a modified wheelchair and like pin him down, and one of the first things they do is that he's explaining to Suni, who and he gets very upset at her when she takes off her fancy helmet. He's got these like helmets that are meant to block the telepathic waves of the aliens. First thing he does is he shaves his head, and she says, "Why did you shave his head?" And he's like, "Because they use their hair to communicate telepathically, like in large distances." Now he's still got
antennas.
He's got some telepathic power still short range, which is why we have to wear the helmets until we like mess with these nerves or whatever. And she's like, how do we do that? And he's like, well, we've got this bottle of, I don't even know what it was, to be honest, but something that's going to hurt when they rub it into his skin.
It's said menthol. I think it's just like a muscle relaxant. I think that's all it really is.
Yeah, but they use like, it's not sandpaper, but they rub like a fabric of like a rough fabric against his feet to basically like cut him or like rough the skin up so it'll bleed. And then they rub the liquid into that. And the guy's screaming through all of this. And I'm like, this is like, I believe this is really painful and it's probably very, very, very unpleasant. But it's like torture, but in like a really kind of like, what does a housewife have at home to torture someone kind of way? Like, what does she have around the house that you could use to extract information from a prisoner of war?
I mean, fair. For me, it just fell 100% down that like conspiracy theory rabbit hole. The sort of thing where he just picks something out of a hat and says, this is their weakness. This is the thing that will break down their cell structure. And it doesn't matter what it was, as long as it's on hand, because he's got it.
Because he'll start explaining, their DNA is similar to us, but there's one difference, and that'll cut to like diagrams that he's got on his wall of like the alien species. And we see like a drawing of their face at one point as well, and they're mostly just human, but they've got like sort of almost like big earlobes that dangle down.
Yeah, like comedically sized, oversized earlobes.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it difference-wise. But it's like, okay. And she's like going along with all this, but it's clearly a little disturbing to her. She's maybe starting to question, what have I got myself into here?
Between her actually being the one to catch him, and then when they're like, not sanding, but scarring up his feet to be able to put the stuff on it, she says, did I go too far with it? And like he looks over at it for a second, and I was expecting it to be like he just kind of made some scratches or whatever. She took off the top of his foot. Like I expected her to be hyper competent at this sort of thing, but no, it turned out that it was basically the same.
No, I mean that said though, it's not that initial example of her showing up and being the useful one is not the last time that's going to happen. Like, she ends up like dealing with things better than he does a couple of times throughout the movie.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, like, so we've got him there. They've got his head shaved, and like, you know, at whatever point early on, like, he actually like hears a lot of what Lee's saying to him and talking about, and he's gagged and whatnot. So he's like, it was, you know, he's like, so he's reacting to it, but you're not hearing what he's saying, that kind of thing. And we're also at this point somewhere around here introducing the detectives, because this high executive of a company has disappeared. He's been kidnapped.
I think he's also the husband of the daughter of the police chief. So the police have an even bigger investment of like, no, we definitely got to find this guy alive.
Yeah, and we get kind of like the police chief's like I don't want you working on this case because you got done once for taking a bribe to our older detective, Chu is his name. And the younger detective's Kim, and Kim's a big fan of Chu, and Chu basically says, "Get lost, kid. Don't work with me. I work alone." I work alone. Yes, I'm a rogue. I'm a badass, but I'm going to go and investigate this case. But the thing, if he does find at the crime scene though, where he was kidnapped, like a blue pill, which turns out to be something that's a prescription, but it's basically like a heavy narcotic to like dampen your feelings.
I think the one of them specifically says like it's essentially prescription meth, and like it kicks in like 5 seconds after you take it.
And then he takes the pill that was lying on the ground because clearly he's a troubled man, Detective Chu.
The young cop is like, "Oh, okay, that's good. That's evidence. We can look into that and see what hospitals were prescribing." And he just tosses it in his drink and goes, "Yep, all right, let's see how that works out."
Yeah, but I want to point out there's a close up of him holding it first, and there's like little hairs on it and stuff, which. That makes me feel bad. I don't like that. No. Look,
I think when it comes down to getting free prescription drugs, you kind of just take what you get. You don't really question it that much.
No. No. These people who are like, oh, there's a 5-second rule. No. Once it's touched the floor, it's contaminated with little hairs and dust. I ain't touching it. It's not going anywhere near my mouth. Thank you very much.
That's fair.
So that stuff set up. You know, we do a whole bunch of things here. I mean, Sumi, ultimately does leave. Right? She ends up kind of ditching out on this because things are getting a little bit too hot to handle.
Well, yeah, so they do an entire sequence where the one guy he's got like a high voltage rods or whatever, and he uses those to torture him just because. He's just like, why not? But
to distinguish here, the rods early on are different than what I think is supposed to be the big electrified dildo that he's going to shove up his ass later.
It's not electrified, it emits steam.
I'm not sure if that's better or worse.
It's probably worse.
Which he never actually gets to use, of course, right? So don't worry, no one gets anally steamed in the movie, but it was threatened.
So he uses the electrified things, and then we basically have Suni is just... We also get this whole thing where he's out in town and he's fighting this bully. We might get back to that. It doesn't really matter.
Well, we see him later in a small plot line, but that's just a setup for him.
And then Suni is watching Kang and is like, hey, he doesn't love you. He's just using you. And Kang remembers who Lee is and like calls him out and saying like, oh, is this what? All revenge for what? Your girlfriend, your mom? Like, what is this about? And we get a little bit of backstory there, but he basically points out to Suni that this is all revenge for an ex-girlfriend. He doesn't actually love you. She pushes the point, says, hey, do you love me? He can't say it back for whatever reason. And so she just ends up bailing at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing here because he doesn't like... He can't say it, and he kind of just lets her go. He doesn't worry about the fact that she knows what he's doing. He still trusts her, right? But he's very amicable. Given everything else he's doing, it is very amicable the way like this just kind of like, you know, lets her free kind of thing. Which, you know, to be fair, all of these potential aliens, as we find out later, are all people who have done very bad things to him or around him in the past. So it's not like he typically is after innocent people. That said, he isn't against like killing like detectives who are about to catch him doing what he's doing either. So it's not like he's completely like, you know, got a strict code that he's going to follow no matter what.
it comes down to he sees his mission as so utterly important that any amount of collateral damage is acceptable, because otherwise it's the extinction of the whole planet.
Yeah, end of the world. Like, I mean, you'll get more justified than that.
Yeah, you know? Exactly.
So this leads to obviously what comes after, and like he is pissed now at Kang, and Kang's kind of getting a bit cocky now. And just to kind of like elaborate on, like, yeah, so the mum's sick, right? His mum's been sick for a while and has basically effectively been poisoned by working in this Kang's like plant, right? The plant this pharmaceutical company have. She got sick there, and now she's in a coma in the hospital. And then it's also hinted with a couple of quick snippets here early on that his it's not an ex-girlfriend if she died. Like, they didn't break up, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, previous girlfriend, widowed girlfriend, whatever you want to call it.
Because you can't say widowed because they're not married, but you know what I mean? It's more like that than a breakup. But she seems to have died in some kind of riot or some kind of,
It felt to me like it was calling back to a very specific period of like Korean history or something. Like this was a very specific time, but I'm not familiar enough with it.
Well, I didn't look up specifically what it was, but I did look up in general sense. It's a protest, so she was protesting something and died.
Right. I mean, I gather it seemed pretty political. It seemed like cops cracking. They were all like wearing armbands and stuff. I just didn't know if this was like the 1982 uprising or something like that.
So yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, right? And I mean, I guess a lot of the middle of the movie is Kang trying to escape, right? And kind of getting relatively far with it, but ultimately Lee coming in, dragging him back, cutting him off at the pass when he's trying to go through a tunnel and all sorts. And then this also coincides with Inspector Chu, because he's figured out about the sick mom and who's getting these pills. He shows up to investigate. So all this kind of coalesces, the big middle portions, all that stuff.
Yeah, we had a bit where the police intersected because they got ATM footage of Lee, but he was dressed like head to toe. He had like a hat, a mask, big sunglasses. You couldn't tell anything about him. The police go the route of doing a CSI zoom and enhance of the license plate to try to get whatever information they can off of it.
Honestly, that scene where they're like zoom in is maybe the most dated moment in this whole movie, because it's a very 2000s like police procedural kind of moment.
Yep. Meanwhile, Chu gets the information from Kim and decides to go down the idea of who would want to attack this guy, who's someone who's going to attack this guy. Ends up at the hospital, asks questions around about the mom, and discovers that at the ATM he took out like $400 or something like that, and the expenses for those pills that he takes, the meth pills, those are just shy of $400. So he uses that as his justification to go search his property.
Well, I think it was also partly the bill for like his mother's care. I think because that's
probably too.
Yeah, it was because he was saying that it was late with the bill last time, and then he checked the date of when he paid it to when that ATM photo was taken, and it kind of matched up. It was like, oh, this is lately him. So that's what gets him to the house. And meanwhile, Kang's been trying to escape and do all sorts. Now, I'm a little fuzzy in the order here because a lot happens like just kind of in a bunch of different ways. Because
the big thing is, prior to Chu showing up, Kang broke free of his chair. He managed to actually get that, and that's the sequence where we're about to use the steam cleaning dildo. That's where that happens.
Which has a lot of lube on it. Because that's what we just cut to him just lubing up this big metal thing. I'm like, that looks kind of like a dildo.
Yep. And he's like, now this, like the voltage thing you could survive because you're an alien, but this will kill you no matter what. And so he manages to break free of his chair. He actually manages to straight up kill Lee during their fight.
That's right. Yeah.
However, he's so pissed off at Lee that he starts kicking his body. And I guess he kicked in the perfect sort of chest compressions to restart Lee's heart. And then he just tries to grab the keys and go, but he doesn't have the last key needed to get out the final door. Yeah,
because Lee's got like another way out, and he gets around the front and basically traps him in this little sort of hallway that he's in. Now, I love that moment because it does the Mortal Kombat X-ray thing where it kind of goes into like the X-ray of the foot, like hitting the heart, and then it's like, oh, you just brought him back to life, you fool. And it's like, who am I rooting for here? Because this guy is very unlikable, and it's worth mentioning as well because we've not said this yet. Lee's goal is to get him to admit that he's an alien. Obviously, he wants them to talk about what their plans are and stuff, but part number one is just getting him to admit that that's what I am. I am an alien, right? Yeah. That's the goal here. So because of this, he does inject him with something to kind of like quieten him down, because we get a whole sequence where once the detective shows up and he's up talking to him outside, there's like a sort of like door going to like the ground upstairs that Lee's actually made his way to, and he's got his hands sticking out, and Lee has to like put his foot on it to hide it, and it's like hurting him. But he's like, so he's already, the syringe that he got was already like affecting him, so he can't make any noise. So it's like there's a lot of close calls. It's a lot of him just narrowly. There's a bit when they get inside where the security monitor that he's got set up to like keep an eye on Kang downstairs is just there, and he's already been talking to Chu for like a minute, and he's like, shit, that's still on the screen. I can't let him see that. And he has to like distract him so he can turn the TV off. He's like, UFO! There's a UFO out there! It's like, oh, that's weird. And he actually uses his foot. He sort of leans back with his foot to hit the TV remote. It's just quirky little details like that just give it a little bit of like pep beyond just what's actually happening.
That's the thing. It's so weird because you feel the tension in this moment of him looking at the TV, looking back at Chu, and just being like, oh God. And the remote's like on the other side of the room. I can't possibly turn it off without raising suspicion. So as soon as he's about to look down the TV, he calls him over to the window. And then you just get this crazy ass shot of like a reverse high kick, and his big toe just lands directly on the power button of the remote. And it's so silly, but following that tension, it's like, all right, I guess that's resolved now. Feels good, but I again, do I laugh? Is it a funny moment?
Yeah, and then there's just more close, because he ends up spending the night because it's too late to go back down the mountain. So they end up drinking together. They seem to have like a friendly time. But there's another close call in the middle of the night where, you know, Detective Chu wakes up and he hears some noises, so he goes down with his gun, and it looks like he's about to catch Lee with the body, like with Kang, but then it turns out just a mannequin. Because, by the way, we've not mentioned this, but Lee's pastime is building mannequins, so there's just mannequins everywhere around here.
Look, I don't care what the laws are in Korea. This is something you can arrest somebody on, just on vibes. If they are a mannequin collector, tinkerer, maker, whatever, that man is a serial killer. Arrest him.
So, okay, but it deflates because it's just a mannequin. He's like, oh, I couldn't sleep. I decided to work on the mannequin. Turns out there's two levels to this basement, and the other level's the one with Kang in it. So, all well's the ends well. And it seems like he's gotten away with this scot-free. Next day, Detective Chu's going to leave. Like there is it was worth mentioning as well, I guess, that Lee at one point says, hey, by the way, do you believe in aliens? And he's like, I've got a book for you. We read this book, it's all about the aliens. It'll be really enlightening. You're gonna love it.
They bond over this, like, because he talks about how his mom got sick and how this like hatred overwhelmed him, and he ended up like being sick because of it. And Chu apparently can relate. He finishes the idea of the thought for it. So you see him lighten up. You see Lee lighten up a little bit, like, oh, okay, this is a guy who gets me. Hey, let me tell you about aliens. And he just goes off.
No, it's so good. But as he's leaving, he's saying his goodbyes, everyone's all happy. And just as he's going out, he sees Lee's dog, who's named Earth, by the way, which is, I feel like it's just so that at the end, when he's saying to the detective, take care of Earth, as if like, I'm passing the torch to you. You're now the new guardian of Earth.
God.
But Earth is chewing a bone. And Chu kind of stops in his tracks and looks at it and is like, well, that's a big bone, that. And then he leans down and he picks up the bone and he puts it against his leg, and it's like, that's about the size of your femur there. That's interesting.
That's not a pig. That's not a cow. That's bigger than that.
So he walks off making calls to the young detective. And this is where, like, if you didn't want to do... what?
I just want to jump in. He then looks into the doghouse and sees a human skull.
Yeah,
like, he definitively confirms this dude's a murderer.
No, you're right. I was missing out a detail there. But yeah, he sees a skull and he starts walking and calling the younger detective, Inspector Kim. And this is where I would say, like, if you weren't going to do the whole, like, their relationship until this point, you could literally just introduce Kim here. Like, introduce him, like, so to almost do like a hot potato thing where we do a pivot here because Chu's about to die, but he's passed on enough information to Kim for Kim to pick up the torch and continue with the plot, and nothing would really change, as it is.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, but anyway, let's not gloss over how he dies though, because that's got its own fun.
He's going back to Kim, but he's getting low signal because they're like all the way up on top of the mountain. So he actually has to make his way back towards Lee's place in order to try to get a signal. And Lee, who I won't spoil your thing here, but Lee is also a very accomplished beekeeper, and he's taking care of his bees.
Yes, and it seems like he's not even suspicious of Chu to begin with until he hears the phone, like, is Inspector. He's like, oh no. So Chu, like, ultimately pulls out his gun and says, freeze, you're under arrest, whatever. And he's holding a jar of, is this supposed to be honey? Do bees eat honey?
No, they eat like nectar. Like, so
it's nectar.
Take the nectar. But it's not, because I think it's just, we can just label this as bee food.
Okay.
Because it's definitely not just pure nectar.
But it kind of looked like honey though in the jar, which is why I was confused first. Bees make honey, they don't eat honey. But right. he's got the jar of goo. And he's like, oh, this is for the bees. And he actually throws it into Chu's face, which kind of like blinds him for a minute. And I did laugh, and I had a good way, like not at the movie, but like they went out of their way to have a really specific visual of the slow-mo, like just goo hitting his face. And it just felt like such a sheet of goo. It just, I don't know, it worked for me.
Oh, this whole sequence, top to bottom, I love this whole sequence, because it goes from the sheet of goo flying into his face, and then as he's trying to recover, Lee is knocking over beehives and like trying to rough him up, trying to get him all antagonized. And then the bees all start to swarm up like into the sky. Like, they don't immediately attack. They congeal first, make it a whole solid mass of bees first. And the piece de resistance, the moment I love so much, is Chu, as they start flying at him, starts unloading his gun, and they specifically shoot individual bees falling to the ground after having been hit by these bullets. That's like the dumbest possible shot for that, of an individual bee being taken out by a bullet, but sure, why not?
Well, if you're fired into a mass of bees, I think you would hit a bunch of bees with some of the shots. However, I feel like the bees upon impact would just explode and there wouldn't be anything to fall to the ground.
Exactly.
That would be my guess.
No, it's played as if this is like a group full of goons that are coming in to attack. Like, oh, you took down the one and we're going to show him fall.
Anyway, so he ends up going over the edge when they're all covering him. So when we see him at the bottom of the cliff, he's just like covered in bees and there's a pool of blood coming from him. That's him done. He's all over. And
then Lee goes out and grabs the body and immediately chops it up and feeds it to the dog.
That's right. That's a couple of quick cuts, like no pun intended, but it's just a couple of quick cuts of like, boom, boom, boom. Dog bowl like going out. So Earth's having a healthy diet of people, it seems like, based on the other bones that he's been chewing on. So he goes back inside, and now he's got Kang strapped down now that he's waking up, and he's like, I need to make sure you can't escape again. And he's holding an axe, and he's got his feet kind of like, out. He's also got his arms up kind of crucifix style. Like, he's still kind of on the wheelchair, but he's got like a crucifix kind of pose now.
Oh yeah, it's a full wooden cross, and he's got nails through his palms. Like, it is absolutely a crucifix.
Although he was nice enough to give him anesthesia for his hands, like his upper half of his body that won't feel pain. But there wasn't enough for his legs, you see. So this part's going to hurt.
I feel like that was more so of like, look, it would hurt you a lot for me to do that, but I can score a lot more trauma points if you just suddenly wake up to being crucified, and that's really what I'm aiming for here.
That's very possible. And this actually, for the first time, Kang... well, actually, I want to go back. We did gloss over one little moment that I think is worth mentioning here, is that when he thinks when he's effectively killed Lee before he resuscitates him accidentally, which, again, that's a funny sentence to say, he does kind of, like, say some stuff as if he is an alien, where he kind of says, oh, you stupid creatures, and kind of makes a noise that doesn't sound like Korean. And I'm like... That's an interesting little moment, because like anything else in the movie, you can argue, oh, we're seeing it from Lee's perspective. We're seeing it through his like lenses, and like he's manipulating things into his fantasy, his his delusion. But he's dead in this moment when he like makes this little comment, and I'm like, oh, like is there some juice in this fruit here? It seems like there might be.
I mean, but it is just on the cusp enough when he says like creatures. Maybe that's a translational thing, but it feels like, are we still hitting on that class aspect? Because
it could be, yeah.
He also keeps on making reference to saying like, you exist in this group of crazies, like you are just a crazy person, and so it feels like he's dehumanizing him into that more so than this idea of you're a human in general. Yeah,
but I think it's played in a way that you can read it as alien, and it's poking the bear a little bit, right? If we're trying to like keep both options open. But when he's about to chop off his leg, Kang starts yelling, okay, you win, you're right, I'm an alien from Andromeda, I'm here. Actually, which I love how whenever they say Andromeda, because even at the start of the movie when he's about to kidnap him, he's like, oh, I'm from the same hometown as you, Andromeda. And I'm like, Andromeda's a galaxy, I'm pretty sure. That's a pretty big town.
Hey, look, me and Pete are from the same place, the Milky Way.
Yeah, that's the equivalent. So he's like, yeah, I'm an alien, I'll tell you stuff. And he's like, but why would you give this up just for a leg? That doesn't seem very, going with your plans.
Yeah, he immediately volunteers the info of, we can save your mom. Your mom, she's in a vegetative state. She's been in a coma, but she doesn't have to be. And he just spits off this story. True or not, he spits off this story basically saying she's part of an experiment. If the experiment doesn't work, she'll end up dying regardless. If it does work, it's this whole thing about like human evolution. He spits out like genetics and stuff like that. Not a whole lot of details. We do get that later.
Yeah.
But he basically says like, we can save her. She is absolutely, we can just remove her from the experiment and she'll wake up, no problem.
Yeah, so obviously this does sound like a Hail Mary where you're thinking, well, I don't necessarily think he's an alien because he's saying this. This sounds like he's saying something that'll be what he wants to hear, and specifically targeting the mum and saying, hey, this will help the mum. To the point where he says, hey, I've got a bottle of the antidote for what she's, like the experiment. There's an antidote in my car. And there's a benzene, I think he said it was. But
yeah, it's benzene.
But he goes out to the car, right, after this. Well, I mean, first of all, he hits him in the leg with the back of the axe. So he hurts him, but doesn't chop it off. Because he had to punish him still, you see, of course.
Yes. He tried to escape.
But he goes out to the car and he gets a bottle. And I don't really know what benzene is, but I'll tell you what I do know. A big skull and crossbones on the bottle is a bit of a warning sign for me, David.
No. What that means in the alien language is that's for humans, because it's the human skeleton.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's clearly the antidote for the humans.
Yeah, but it's actually when he goes to the hospital to give this to his mum that Kang does go snooping around. Like he pulls his hands off the crucifix because he's like, hey, it won't hurt. The anesthesia's still active, so I'm going to just pull my hands off and go hobbling around looking for backstory, for clue. He finds journals, and this is what gets us to some of the main characters' backstory. Now, this isn't the insane backstory. That comes a little bit later for the alien side of things, but this gives a lot though about the main character. And at least even if like, okay, there's no aliens, this is all in his head, it definitely gives you reasons why he is very disturbed, like all the trauma he has been through in one way or the other, because it does the flashback where he's a little kid, his dad's a miner in the mountain, and he's coming out, and there's some kind of explosion that ends up causing his dad to lose an arm. You're like, oh, this is really dark, and the mum's crying. This is his sad backstory, and I think most movies that would be it. It would stop there, and it would just cut back to like
it's like, boy, isn't that traumatic? We don't need to put our main character through any more than that.
No. But then his mother had to kill his father in self-defense because he basically went nuts at the house and he killed him with one of those little umbrellas you put in a drink because it's sticking out of his face.
Yeah. That was the mom's job, was she makes the little tiny umbrellas that like go in cocktail drinks or whatever. And during the fight, he falls, temple first onto an upsticking umbrella. So he stands up and there's an umbrella just coming out of the side of his head.
So that's trauma number 2. Trauma number 3 is that when he's in school, he's not only bullied and gets into fights, but because of that, he's blamed for it by his very kind of aggressive teacher who not only like properly spanks him with a ruler in class, but does it in front of everyone with his trousers down and yelling at him. Like, this is proper, like he would be in prison for doing this. Like,
oh yeah,
in the modern world, dare I say. I mean, not that this is set that far in the past, but I'm saying this is not okay. This is very much criminal.
I do want to interject. The other thing, this is all told in montage. This is all told
it's all
just very
quick.
quickly cut or whatever.
Yeah, it's very quick.
And it's very much intercut with the other detective, the younger one, Kim, who has like looked into this file. He's gotten on the same path, and he realizes
he's basically discovering all the same stuff like in tandem. From the other side of it.
He's discovering that all of these people who brutalized or attacked him, anyone who caused him trauma in that way, all mysteriously went missing.
Yes.
And they were never solved, these missing persons case. So he's putting together like, this is the shared connection point between all of these missing person cases that we didn't know were related.
Yeah, so it's very clear he's went after this teacher who abused him. It's very clear he's went after this bully that's done this to him, and so on and so on. And we see the girlfriend that he had a little bit later who dies in this protest. So, it's this whole string of traumatic incidents and violence, right? And what's so neat about all this is that when we get to the alien side of it that may or may not be true later, it kind of encompasses and includes the fact that he's been surrounded by violence as part of his themes in like a really big way that makes it feel like, oh, there's a reason why all this is like, like so laid on thick. How many bad things have happened to this guy growing up. So if he is messed up in the head, you can't really blame him. Like most people would break after all this.
it's literally a story of like, I mean, just to kind of focus on the end for a second, it's literally a story of what happens if the gods themselves just pick on you. Like, how far can you go? And then what happens after you break, like, and try to get revenge on those gods? Like, that's kind of where we come at this story from that angle. So it's hard not to be sympathetic for everything he goes through. But the way the story is told, you're constantly bouncing between, oh, he's just like crazy, we shouldn't have the sympathy for him, to, okay, he does have a sympathetic backstory, but he's still doing these bad things. And then it just slingshots around from there of like, are his actions really defendable? Because obviously he's killing like innocent detectives as well. So you can't be on his side there. It's very complicated, but I really like the way that they deal with that, where his character isn't as cut and paste, like black or white. He's very much in this middle area.
There's a tragedy element to all of it, and obviously once we get to the end, we can delve a bit more into the nitty gritty of it. But so that's all happening at the same time, and then this all kind of ends with him pouring the benzene into his mum's mouth, and then basically montages immediately to the sheet going over her face. Oh, that might have killed her. Sorry. So whoops-a-daisy, I think is the phrase one might use.
Yeah. But then also the cop, as he puts it all together, he calls up his superior and is just like, hey, I figured it out. We got the guy. Let's go and arrest him. And the other superior officer is like, oh, never mind. We already got him. Like, here he is. And it turns out it's just like the bully from before that we skipped over, who he somehow Lee framed him and was just like, oh, okay, there you go. I'll take care of it.
He just put some of his bloody clothes into his house, and that was basically it. Here's evidence. And it sounds like they maybe used his car, and that's why the license plate is led to him in the first place. He
was wearing his like denim jacket and drove on his moped, which had the license plate that was caught on camera. So directed back to them, and then the police made up a whole story of how he was a disgruntled ex-employee, and that's why he kidnapped him. But it seems like he's dead, so no need to continue looking.
Yeah, Kang. They think Kang's dead at this point. But obviously our young Inspector Kim is like, no, I believe there's still more to find here. I think this guy's at the center of all these people that have went missing, which he's right, it's Lee. So he's on his way. Before we get to that, though, we get the most insane exposition dump, maybe in the history of cinema.
Yeah.
So when Lee gets back and Kang's there, basically Kang is trying to kind of, what it seems like anyway, he's trying to buy himself more time by telling Lee more things that he wants to hear. Because, you know, he comes in and he's like, my mom's dead. And he's like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. Yeah. But there's like thousands of other experiments all over the earth kind of thing. Like, we have tons of people who are testing on to make sure they're better. And then he kind of explains the backstory as to why we're doing these tests. Is there something you want to get to before I start describing this? Because this is quite heavy.
Yes, I do. Just to be clear, the detective gets back there before Lee does.
That's first. Sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's about to free the guy, and it's just like, oh, hey, we got you. We're taking you home. We're doing that. And then Lee comes in. And then, completely separate to all this, we see Zany, the girlfriend, has returned to her job at the circus. She's on the tightrope, falls like 25 feet, just onto just sheer ground, and then just sits up and says, Lee's in trouble, and runs off. so fast forward to Lee's trying to fight against the detective and all that. He's being held at gunpoint. I think Kim actually shoots him in the leg. Then at that point, as it looks like it's all over, in comes Zany with an acrobatics technique that I haven't seen since Jurassic Park 2, and just like fully chokes out this guy, and they manage to get the upper hand again.
Yeah, gets him in a head scissors after some flippy doos.
Yeah.
And that's it. They're both tied up, and we get to the insane backstory, which I had not remembered this. Like, holy shit.
This is what you forgot? Oh, okay.
I did not remember this at all. And it started getting into like... So, right. So it basically says that the aliens came here a long time ago. He said something like the 75th descendant of the original king of their species, right? They came here...
But millions of years ago, like dinosaur times for us.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, that was about to say. Yeah. They come here and it's dinosaurs. There's dinosaurs here and they don't much like that. Or the virus spreads by accident, whatever the reason is. But the dinosaurs all die. It seems to be a virus rather than a comet or whatever. Okay, fine. Right, we're retconning dinosaur extinction, so that's already kind of big. And then it's like, and then we decided that we'd rather have a species down there that were more like us. So we made you in our image. That's why you look pretty like we're almost human looking because you're based on us.
Just to clarify, when you said made you, it's made humans, but there's a twist to who
no,
you
no,
really
I know,
are.
I'm getting that. We're going in order. We have to go through this beat for beat. They made humans, right? And the humans start to evolve and get smart. And then out of nowhere, he kind of casually mentions that the humans he's talking about are on Atlantis. And I'm like, wait a minute now. What's that now?
They also have the big black monolith from 2001 as well. Like, that's also just here for no reason.
And they say, the problem is, though, is that human beings are like, you know, we wanted them to be good. We wanted them to be aggressive and smart. The problem is, though, is that it kind of like that attempt to put something in the genes, something in the DNA that would make them better, made them too aggressive and violent and wanting to like overrule us or overthrow us. So they started experimenting ways to make themselves even better and more stronger and violent. So we had to take care of them. We warred for eons, right? The war lasted a long time between us and the humans, but we won. Humans were killed. They were extinct. However,
yeah, this is the part that goes off. Like everything up until this point, I'm like, okay, all right, but the humans went extinct. How do we still have humans? And the movie's like, ho ho ho, you'll never guess.
Someone that they did not know about, the aliens did not know that Noah had an ark with
a space ark, a spaceship.
Had an ark full of every species, right, and human beings. And then I can't remember why they de-evolved back to apes first, but they de-evolved back to apes when like they go back to Earth.
the only thing they give is due to reckless genetic restructuring, rapid degradation set in.
Yes.
So we go back to apes for a bit.
We go back to apes, and you mentioned the monolith from 2001. This is where it really comes in, because they straight up do a recreation of the apes, like using the bones as tools in front of the monolith, and it's like evolution started again. It started to roll forward, and the alien prince decided, let's give humanity one more chance. We'll let this play out. We'll see where they go this time. And, you know, smash cut to a montage of Hitler and like other wars. And I want to mention this. I laughed when I opened the IMDb page up, because at the bottom of the IMDb page, in the credits, it says Adolf Hitler self.
Oh, God. That's unnecessary. But
That's
yeah,
so funny.
to be fair, yeah.
So it's like, here's all this wars, here's all these awful things that human beings have done, you're still a violent bunch of pests, and the experiment we've been doing is actually us trying to like fix you, trying to like push humans to the point where we'll get rid of that violent gene that was put in there before. Is still there. It never went away, even though you went back to apes, you evolved again. It's still in there. We want to try and fix it. But if these experiments fail, we're going to have to just call it and wipe you all out, because you're a bunch of goddamn losers and we can't have it anymore.
So, two things. First, the only extra bit on that is that he specifically asked, like, why was my life so shit? And they say, you and your mom are part of the experiments, and in order to be subject to this change, you have to be traumatized. Like, you have to be open to this sort of thing in order for that to happen. And we found that only happens if you are put through extreme emotional duress constantly. Which is so funny and hypocritical in a sense, right? Because their whole thing is that human beings are too violent. And I do like how that plays into, like, yeah, he's kind of right given this kid's backstory, because like, look at everything that happened to him, like all this like darkness around him. But it's also something that they kind of like made happen to him, because the only way to fix humans like violent tendencies is to put them through lots of violence. That doesn't really add up in my brain, but that's what they're trying to do. I have to assume that that's a theme of the movie, because without spoiling it, the end of the movie shows just how violent this alien race is themselves. And obviously, even in the backstory, we said they launched a 1,000-year war just because they didn't want to be overthrown. I have to assume this idea that the aliens are peaceful is really just them saying, like, no, we're better than you. And it's this going back to the class structure idea. It's this idea of where they're just, we don't want you to upset the established order, so we're going to make up whatever we have to make up in order to justify destroying you. The only other bit that I wanted to bring up, though, is I love the fact, absolutely love the fact, that this story is told with the idea in mind that we are trying to square the circle of how do we have dinosaurs, but also have the Bible be true. And we have to do dinosaurs, the Bible, and evolution. We have to hit all three of those in one backstory. So we have dinosaurs, we do the Bible thing, and then we regress and do evolution again.
Are you forgetting one key pillar there? You said we've got the Bible, we've got evolution, and we've got dinosaurs, right?
Yes. And Atlantis?
Well, I wasn't even going to say that, because there's 5. Atlantis, but also aliens, which is, and their answer to that was, well, just do 2001. That explains the aliens and the evolution in one go. That's like two with one stone. There you go.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Someone else already did it the best. We're just going to copy the homework of them.
This montage is so batshit insane, right? And the great thing about it is, though, is you're like, wait, what is this? Is he speaking true? And then right after, though, there's a moment where Lee's believing it, but then he looks down and sees all the different like books and stuff that Kang's been looking at, and like, oh, there's a book open to a page about Noah. There's a book open to a painting of dinosaurs, and it's basically like, oh, has he done that thing where he's looked around the room and just made up a story
he did
using
the usual suspects,
right? I love it. I love because that still keeps it open that this is still not all true, that it's still all just a delusion, and the guy is that Kang's just trying his damnedest to play along because it's the only way he might get out of here if he like does this for a bit.
I love that every once in a while, it's very few and far between because they really want to like pump this montage and show it. But whenever they cut back into the room, every once in a while it cuts over to Detective Kim, who's been tied up, and he's gagged like, what?
He's like, huh?
Like he's like, what is going on?
Just keep in mind, Detective Kim has not even heard about aliens up until this point, and he is sitting here listening to this. So he's just sitting there gagged, being like,
and then after Lee looks at all the books, he's like, all right, a convenient story, but you made one mistake. How could it be that the 75th ancestor of your current king went to the dinosaurs when that was 75 million years ago? Are you telling me you lived for 1 million years? And Kang immediately, without skipping a beat, is like, no, you idiot. We live on a planet like interstellar with relativity. We only live for 150 years, but it stretches out to like our lifetimes in your perspective to seem like millions. And then it cuts to Lee thinking about one of his notebooks where he did the math.
Yeah.
And it all like evens out. And Kang ends it with like, what, don't you know anything about relativity? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, sure, movie. You just do whatever you want now. I'm on board. I love it.
Well, that's the beauty of it, though. This could just be bullshit. And like it's almost pointing out that because he's stumped Lee's just going to agree with it like he gets it. It's like, yeah, son of a bitch, you're right. Like, I don't think he really knows that he's right. He's like, oh, like he sounds confident and I don't want to look dumb, so I'm just going to say yes.
There's a webcomic I read. I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically someone saying like, if you're ever talking to a conspiracy theorist, you just have to have stronger conspiracy theories. And then the example they used was like, yeah, I think we faked the moon landing. I don't think we ever went up there. And the other guy's like, ha, you believe in the moon? And this just has that same sort of energy where it's like, haha, very convenient. But what about this? And he's just like, relativity, of course. He's like, that makes sense. That fills in the gaps.
Yeah, so this sets up our end game, which is he's like, look, you've cut my hair. I need to go back to the plant that I own to send a message to the prince so that they won't destroy Earth during the lunar eclipse. Like I have to go send that message, and maybe then we can like save everyone. Blah blah blah. And so it kind of gears us up, and soon he's coming as well. And before he goes though, Lee goes over to Detective Kim, who's still bound and gagged, drops a pile of folders in front of him, and says, "In case this doesn't work and we don't make it, here's everything I know. You can continue the fight." And then looks at his dog and goes, "Look after Earth."
And Kim's just like, what?
So, and there's a whole bit, obviously, while they're driving where he's able to get out of his restraints. So he's on his way and he's calling the other police. So just to mention that. But they go to the plan. There's a whole, cinematic sequence of them driving. It's really building you can feel like you're getting at the climax here. It feels like we're building to whatever the showdown's going to be. And Kang's putting on a bit of a show. He's got sensors on his head and he's flipping some switches, and you're like, oh, how true or not true is this? And it's the sort of thing where, like, in a more serious movie, I'd say it's definitely not true, and this is all about someone with delusions. But the tone in this is so like quirky that I'm like, this could just be real. This could all be real, and he's actually an alien, and it's tough to tell at this juncture.
Yeah, no, I really. It's a very, very fine line to go through. But I think what really makes it work is that at every single point where Kang is able to do something human to try to escape, he does. And so like it always has that feeling of he's always just trying to get out of things. It's never him actually playing along, never him actually revealing things. It's just saying and doing whatever he has to get out of this crazy person's traps.
But, if he is an alien, then it still works that he's just trying to get away. Like, other than the telepathy from the hair, he may just not have any other abilities that are, extra normal, So it still makes sense, even if he is an alien. But anyway, he's able to get the upper hand here with Lee and Suni, where he actually controls a robotic arm to grab her, which ultimately kills her, actually. So things get very sad. Do you know what I love about this fight that happens? And it goes on for a little bit between Lee and Kang. It gets bloody. He beats Lee almost to death. He's got like a glass pipette or something like that, like a tube that he shoves into his chest, and you just see blood just like spurting out of it. But I love that there's also like water leaking into the room somewhere during this because they smash a canister. and like the blood from Lee is like mixing in with the water, so you get this kind of really sort of like almost river of red, just sort of like shallow flowing through the room. And I think that looks great because I guess because the sprinklers are on as well at one point, and everything just feels very kind of cinematic, and it feels like really emotional. And Lee seems to be dead. His face is all messed up, but he does get back up at the last second and is able to pin down Kang, and eventually gets the gun when he gets knocked back. And they do the whole fake out where you think he shot the gun, but then it's like, no, Detective Kim got here and it was his gun that fired, putting Lee down. And you get this like sad moment as he's looking over to Suni, and he's like, in his head, it's just narration, but he's like, oh, who's going to take care of the world now? It's just really sad. Like, you know what? Even if he's delusional, it's actually really sad that he's dying thinking he's failed to save the world. Like, even if it's not true, it's still really sad that he thinks that. So, so all of this, I like how all this plays out. I think it's a fun sequence that's got a lot of surprising amount of raw emotion in it, despite how quirky the movie's been up until this point. And technically, if this guy is not an alien, he shouldn't be killed. You know, even, I mean, maybe he's still a bit guilty of like, you know, having someone like die in his company and not get away with it. You know, he got acquitted of the crime we heard earlier in the movie. But as the policemen are taking him outside to the car, and they're all, you know, they're making sure he's okay, they're being all nice to him, they're patting themselves on the back for what a job well done that was. Zap, zap, zap. Laser beams or zap beams from the sky come down and knock down all the policemen, including young Detective Kim when he comes running up. And Kang runs out to an open spot, and he is sucked up into the giant anus at the bottom of this spaceship. Don't tell me it's not an anus. It has a sucker looking.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it just fits with everything else going on in the movie.
Yeah. And it turns out that not only is he actually an alien, this whole time, he's actually the alien prince, because everyone else is working for him. He's like, you idiots, why didn't you come and save me? And they're like, you told us not to come and get you until you contacted us. He's like, you idiots, how could I contact you without my hair? Proving that Lee was right about the telepathic hair, which is my favorite part of this reveal, actually. It's like, you know, obviously it's okay, he's really an alien, that's like interesting and funny and whatnot. But him yelling, of course I couldn't call you, my hair was gone. That line made me laugh hysterically.
I can see audiences hating this reveal. I could see it being like, you broke the like ambiguity of it. Like, maybe he was right, maybe he was wrong. Like, you could have had this ambiguous moment, but I can't help but just love the audacity of it. Like, this whole movie has been nothing but just off the wall, insane. And after an entire long sequence there of honestly very like heartfelt emotion, it felt very raw, very like tension filled, to be able to just end the movie with like, yep, and now the aliens, like, what are they going to do? It's like, oh, sure, yeah, all right, let's go with that. They're
all in these dumb outfits. We see him in his like alien form with the big ears, and he's looking at all the experiments on Earth, and it's like, okay, Lee and his mum were both failures, and then it comes up saying another couple are failures, and it's like, there's 4,500 experiments still running. And they're like, Prince, what would you like us to do? And he's like, cancel the experiments. This planet is hopeless. And the movie ends with the Earth blowing up, and we cut to a few faces that we happen to know, and things go bright like a nuclear bomb going off, but we just see this big shot of the Earth exploding, and a TV floats out to like the foreground, and like happy childhood memories of the main character Lee start playing as the credits roll. It's like the world's ended, but we're just like sort of spending this time being sad about our main character, who, like, because you know the movie's been focusing so much on all the things that were bad in his life, and it's kind of interesting that the credits are saying, yeah, but here's all the good things that were in his life.
Oh yeah, no, like, once we didn't talk about it, the score in this I really, really like. It really ends with this sad sort of orchestral string mix that just is so bittersweet, because again, you got the happy moments playing on the side, but then the orchestra itself sounds so like not even depressed about it, just sort of like, here's Earth's last moments, like, this is it. This is what the last memory we're going to have of Earth is this guy's happier moments of life. And it just leaves you sitting with this feeling of, I don't want to say melancholy, but just this like, what was that even about? And not in an incredulous way, not in a way where you're looking at it and saying like, okay, that was quirky and off the wall and zany. You're sitting there like actually feeling feelings. You're feeling like, oh, that guy, he wasn't crazy. He was put through the ringer, and now we're getting to see him as a kid before his life was ruined by these aliens, and you're left with a deep emotional pit there that I think causes you to re-examine what this movie was actually talking about the whole time.
Yeah, and I think you could still read it actually as that they're not real. I think there's still a little bit of room for ambiguity in the sense that by taking this ending and saying the final thing we're going to do is show you his happy memories and make you think and just remind you this was all about him, right? Is that you can sort of just read the ending as, well, this is kind of how he envisions it going when he dies, and like, you know, because he's failed, like his life is over, which, you know, we get the visual representation of that, of the earth blowing up, and then ultimately it's just his memories playing at the end, because like that's who just died, that's who's gone now. So I think you can still argue that they're still not real, but the movie just isn't like concerned with, you know, like it's not even like some stuff is clearly through his lens and some stuff is clearly real. I don't think it's worried about even like dealing with that. It's just kind of like, no, we're going to do whatever we want, and then you can read it how you like. Like you can interpret this how you think it makes sense for the themes and the story that we've been telling. And you know, it's definitely this flawed character who deals with injustice, who deals with, like you say, the class structure and everything beating him down, and like, you know, if nothing else, this idea that he's become what he's become because of these other factors that have resulted into it. Now, do you read that as like, oh, society's not like really looking out for people, you know, and it's leading to this kind of thing? Or do you want to read it as something a bit more like science fiction-y with aliens? You can. I mean, it's all there to do. But the sci-fi stuff is so absurd that it almost challenges you to say, yeah, but that's not really real. Like, think about what this is actually like doing for the character story, as opposed to like taking it at face value.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I just got a kick out of the way you were describing that, because I'm like, this is how people were talking about Joker, but I feel like I enjoyed this so much more than Joker.
Oh, this is way better.
Yeah. Like this is this sort of like, oh, did society let this guy down, and he went around and he was just killing people and all this stuff. But like, no, I think that this one, there's a very clear theme of this sort of class structure, this sort of idea of being put down so much, and the idea of what happens when you try to fight back. What happens when you finally just give up on just being under the boot and decide to fight back against the boot. And I think it's very interesting that we came down with this character who is definitively not a good person, is definitively like has so many like mental issues and all this stuff, but it does feel like he's well-meaning. It does feel like he's doing this stuff because he thinks he's right. And you can't help but just have a little bit of sympathy and emotional availability for a character like that. I think it does a great job of straddling that line and trying to make it like, you know, I think the most obvious example is like early seasons Breaking Bad, sort of like the Walter White character, where you get this idea of, you see this descent, but we're starting off in season 3 or 4 already. Like, he's already at the point where he's done horrible things, and we have to add in that backstory to get him to this point where we understand, we see how bad it got for him, and we do kind of have that innate feeling of, yeah, screw that, you had a crap life, you don't deserve that.
Yeah, I saw an interesting note, because I was Googling there, and apparently one of the things the director said in developing the movie is he was inspired by the idea of what if you told Misery, the Stephen King story, from the perspective of the kidnapper, of Zany. And don't get me wrong, like in that story, she wouldn't be as justified in what she's doing, but I can see how that forms into, like, how that turns into this, like, that nugget of an idea. Like, you know, we're going to focus on like why they're doing what they think they're doing, and are they right? And I think you can read, because the movie ends as if it's all literal and it really happened, oh, he was right to do it the whole time. Or like I was suggesting, you can read it more as, no, this is why he thought he was right to do it the whole time. It's not, we can't really take it for granted that what we're seeing at the end is literally true. More just that this is exactly what he, and that's why it matches exactly. It's why he says the line about the hair. Like, of course I couldn't communicate. I didn't have my hair. Like, and
Yeah.
for a movie that's as funny as it is, and it's often very funny, it feels like it's a lot deeper. Like, it's why I wouldn't put it in comedy, even though it definitely has a lot of funny bits and things in it.
That's why I was so concerned about the marketing. Like, as I sit down for this movie, even once it's done, I don't feel like this should be represented by a bunch of people smiling and swinging around with bright colors and stuff like that. Maybe that's just the vibe that this movie gives off in Korea, but watching it here in America, I'm like, this should absolutely be like the poster to Seven to some extent, and then like maybe a little bit of alien quirkiness off to the side.
Yeah. It's certainly, it's very memorable. I remember it leaving an impact when I saw it like 20 plus years ago. And yeah, watching it again, it still feels very unique. And part of me, like, certainly for a long time, I would have said, no, no one should try to remake this. I do think the director they've got remaking it is like one of the few choices that made me sort of go, okay, I can actually see his take on this, possibly.
Right.
Now, am I going to like it as much? Am I going to, because inevitably some things are going to be different. Is it going to make me as sympathetic to the main character? Is it going to make me, and like, they could completely change the ending. Like, the ending is like open season to do whatever they want with, because it is such a, like I said, it could have went so many different ways and still worked as an ending that I don't know. Are they going to like go as much into the surreal elements and like go crazy? Like, if they keep the backstory that mixes dinosaurs, Atlantis, like Noah's Ark, and like 2001, I will stand up and cheer in the movie theater.
If they keep that backstory and don't follow it up with like Emma Stone looking at the camera being like, "Are you serious?" Like, I that's the only thing. I don't want it to be played. I want it to be played totally straight. I don't want it to be something where it's like, oh, look at how crazy stupid this backstory is. Like, no, make me believe that this happened.
Hey, to be fair, if we're right about Emma Stone being the one that's kidnapped, she'd be the one telling the story.
Ah, that's fair.
She'd be the one explaining it.
Who's the other one? Jesse Plemons. I don't want Jesse Plemons looking at the camera and going, "Are you serious?"
Jesse Plemons not bad casting for the lead role actor. No. Now I'm thinking about it.
He's already got the experience with meth. We can go ahead and run with that. Yeah, I've got to say, like, usually I roll my eyes at remakes, and especially when it's remakes of a foreign movie, because I'm like, just watch the thing with subtitles. Like, I just, like, it's frustrating. But I have to admit, the director and cast of Begonia, if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm not even sure if I am, like, is intriguing. It is like an intriguing assembly of people, and I'm glad we did this so close to it coming out. Now, I don't know if we can do Begonia when it comes out, because the UK release is still a bit wonky. Like, it's getting a limited release, so I don't know if I'll be able to see it when it's out in theaters. We may have to wait until we can watch it at home. But even then, it'll still be relatively fresh, and I'm glad we did, to be able to make the comparisons. Oh, yeah.
To refresh how I felt about this and like go in with a sort of confidence of being like, no, I know exactly how I feel about Save the Green Planet, for the comparison's sake. And part of the fun here is not, like, not knowing anything about the story, but like being more fascinated by what they change and like how are they going to do certain things, and like, are they going to have the balls to keep some of the weirder stuff? And if they do, or if they don't, rather, like, what do they have instead? Is it somehow weirder, or does it feel neutered as a result? Like, these are the fascinating questions going in.
That's kind of the part that I'm most concerned about, just because of the current, like, American climate and stuff like that. We have had a few, like, high-profile murders of CEOs and stuff recently. So I'm hoping they don't pull their punch. I'm hoping this is something where they can, like, make it timeless in spite of what's happening, and not something where it feels either neutered by what's happening or so directly linked to what's happening that it only really works right now.
Yeah. And yeah, keep in mind, like, if you take out the aliens, this is someone who's gone after like a high up boss who is directly responsible and has gotten away with what's happened to his mother, right? This is someone seeking some kind of justice, even if that's not how he's thinking about it in his head. That's what the undercurrent is that maybe his brain is making other excuses that are more noble to go after this guy,
Well, that's a bit we skipped over in the movie itself, is after he is being torn down at one of the points by Kang. Kang basically says, like, you've attacked and killed a lot of people. How many of them were aliens? And we get just
That's
this
right.
shot of all the people he killed and all these labels saying not alien, not alien, not alien. But the reason he did it mentally on his side was, oh, they're bad people. So I'm relating that over to this alien thing, and I'm actually doing the world a favor by getting rid of them.
Yeah. And not to gloss over the fact that he does have some of their body parts in jars and like a shelf in the back of the room. So there is some like, yeah, definitely a bit unhinged. Like I don't want him eating a dark alleyway.
I look, if this guy showed up wearing his trash bag, helmet setup, and anything like that, I'd do everything in my power to get to the other side of the street before he passes me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how when he puts that back on at the end for the final mission, it does almost feel like a superhero outfit that he's got with the helmet and like the trash bag and then the belt or whatever that he's got. It's like, this is like the low rent, like, you know, I had $10 budget to make an outfit, and this is what it turned into.
What's your superpower? I got a gun. Oh, okay.
It's very delightful. There's a delightful, like, despite the darkness and the violence and like the uncertainty of how delusional he is, there's also a delightful quality to a lot of it as well, which is kind of wild, but what's kind of what makes it special.
Like, I wouldn't suggest this is like family movie night. I don't think this is on that level of delightful, but like sitting down, watching it on your own, I think you're going to find that it has a lot more humor than you would expect, just sprinkled throughout. Like, it shows up at the most unexpected times where you're not expecting a humorous moment. It just all of a sudden is there. Yeah.
I mean, and if you do read everything as literal and what we see is just accurate at the end, it's like, this could have been avoided, but like, no one helped him. Well, one person helped him. His girlfriend did help him, but no one else helped him. Right. You know, this was preventable, and we let down. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily trying to be like a allegory for climate change and like, oh, we can do something about this if we actually start doing something, but like,
okay, so that was the other thing going into this movie. I thought for sure it was a climate change movie. I thought I was waiting for that message, and it just never came, and it was instead about the human condition to violence.
The Save the Green Planet title comes from the fact that the aliens, when they found the planet, the prince called it the Green Planet. That came from the aliens. Maybe they see blue and green as different colors. I don't know, but
yeah. There might just be... I do know that there is a culture thing where certain cultures basically just blend together like all the shades of blue and green into just blue. So maybe there's somewhere in Korea and there's this thing of blue is just called green.
That's possible. Wasn't blue also the one where there never used to be a word for it back in the day? Like if you go back far enough.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, possibly.
For some, yeah.
It was either blue or purple. I get what I remember what you're saying. It's striking something in my head.
Because I want to say I remember hearing that because there's not a lot of blue that happens in nature, and then my thought was, well, what about the sky? And
right,
I was like, no, they just didn't think of that as a color. They just like that's just the sky.
Here we go. The ancient Greeks had no word to describe the color blue.
Yeah, I knew I heard that somewhere.
They instead classified colors by whether they were light or dark. Okay.
So you're asking for like a new like suit for your fancy Greek wedding, because they're big and fat, I hear. They say, oh, you really want like an orange suit, so you want a light color, but then you get like bright pink. You know, that's
exactly
because there's no individual. That just seems unfortunate. And just
luckily, my dad told me that before the 1960s, everything was in black and white, so I don't think they noticed.
Well, in that case, just describing colors as light and dark would have worked.
Yeah.
David, what are you rating Save the Green Planet out of 10?
I think Save the Green Planet is an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great film. I think that it is absolutely worth checking out. It is one of those weird things where I want there to be an audience that goes and sees Begonia without seeing this movie, just to give like an untainted view, just to give an idea of
there definitely will be.
Knowing.
It's an English-speaking movie. There's going to be a huge audience who's never even heard of this, won't even know it's like a remake, and they'll just they'll take it as what it is.
I'm just saying I want it in our comment section. I want people to go. I want to be able to have at least a little bit of a split dichotomy there.
but I'm sorry, David, I've turned you into one of the hipsters that knows the original film. So whenever anyone brings it up, you'd be like, well, I've seen the original. So, because every time someone brings up they like The Departed, I am like, well, I've seen Infernal Affairs, and I think that's better.
Yeah. What's the one song I like? Oh, it's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Cyndi Lauper made that famous, but it was actually originally recorded as a demo by someone, I think like Robert Hazard or something like that. I love that version so much more, but it has only been released in like the crappiest possible transfer off of a vinyl. But I'm like, no. That's the superior version.
Yeah. Oh, the other one that I get as well is when someone brings up 12 Monkeys, which I also don't like very much, but the French short film that it's based on, Les Jetés, I quite like.
Isn't that the one that's basically just like a slideshow?
Yep, but it's great.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
It's great. It's a 25-minute slideshow. But I mean, they took it. So it's basically, it's like, hey, we just took a bunch of photographs, but they still had to, like, dress people up and makeup and do all the bits. They just didn't, film it traditionally. But very interesting.
Fair enough.
Very interesting.
All right.
Yeah. So, but hopefully this is a case where I like both versions, and I'm like, okay, I see all the interesting things this has added and all the rest of it. But yeah. So whether or not we get to that in a few weeks when it's in theaters, or maybe like January, February time when it's definitely going to be available at home. Either way, we'll be covering Begonia when the time comes. But of course, David usually has a homework.
Pete, you never gave your numerical rating. What do you rate the movie?
Oh, 8.5. Sorry, I was wrong. I'd already thought about it in my head, and I kept moving on.
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
8.5. Yeah, it's great. It's just I love it. It's great. So, yes. What was I about to say? I audience did not do my homework this week. I am going to plead. I'm going to plead that I am getting married at some point in the near future here, and that kind of takes precedence over trying to fit in a 2-hour movie and then something else on top of it. Shun him, right?
Yep. That's all right.
Pitchforks and torches at the ready.
I will bend over and take the steam cleaning dildo whenever you wanna do it.
I don't want to do it. I'll get someone else to do it.
Okay, so you're just all talk. I see how it is.
But I don't want to do no such thing to you. I'll hire a professional to take care of that.
Professional steam cleaner. Got it.
A big man named
Tiny. It's got to be a big man named Tiny.
That's funnier than what I was going to come up with, probably. I was going to say like Gareth or something like that. But
big man named Jeff.
Yeah, so no homework this week. That'll return in due course. Maybe even not be here next week either, depending on how busy we are, or David is next week while we're doing stuff.
We're cramming in so many extra filming dates before I get married just to make sure we're good for the gap.
Yeah. But of course, I'll tell you what's coming next week on the show, everyone, on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. We are doing Icarus XB1. And you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is that?
I know I am.
Basically, when I was every so often, I'll look through a bunch of best of sci-fi lists and stuff and look for something interesting or lesser known. And this is, I actually can't remember off the top of my head what country this comes from, but it's a foreign film.
Czechoslovakia.
It's a Czech film, okay. Yeah, which technically is not Czechoslovakia anymore, right? It's Czechia now.
Yes, but in 1963 when it came out, it was Czechoslovakia.
Oh, that is weird. Like a movie from a country that technically doesn't exist. I mean, to be fair, I mean, all the Czech variants just feel like one lineage, but it's like DC rebooting everything. It's still all DC,
This is just the post-crisis version of Czech.
Yes. Or maybe we're at Rebirth now. They've changed the name a few times. Czech Republic, that was one at one point. Anyway, so. This was on some best of lists. It had some good scores. I made sure we could find it, and we'll do it on the show. Why not? We'll check it out, and this will maybe be more one that we introduce to you because you've probably not heard of it, because we hadn't heard of it either, to be fair. But hopefully it's good. Hopefully we found a gem, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
So that's Icarus, and the spelling's probably not what you expect, but you'll see the title when it goes up next week. So that's coming next week. Also, over on Collector's Cut, our other movie show, we are doing Sidney May season right now. We're going through some of that director's early work, mostly from the 60s, a little bit dipping into the 70s. That's been going for a couple of weeks now, so go check out that as well. But of course, you can support all the content and keep all the shows coming over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership. You can get the bonus rate and rundown segments for both of those shows that I just mentioned. There's bonuses for Screams After Midnight. And me and David also do a monthly exclusive show for Patreon and YouTube members called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst things ever made. And sometimes they're so bad they're amazingly funny, sometimes they're torture. Either way, you'll probably enjoy our misery. So yes. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks everyone who supports us, it is greatly appreciated. We'll see you guys next time. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.